If you pick the ball cleanly off the grass, then you've lost 25 to 30 yards on your iron shot because the golf shaft was not allowed to bend as a reaction to taking the divot. And that's how the irons are designed. Not taking a divot is probably the key fault with a lot of golfers. They say to me they don't want to hit the ground first 6 inches behind the ball. Well, I don't want you hitting the ground first either. And that's where we work with them and train them to hit the back of the ball. Imagine if you're out there fishing with a fly rod, your fishing pole is going to have a lot of whip to it. It's like a catapult. It's not a firm, stiff fishing pole. It actually has to bend, and it kind of flips the line out there. Well, that's what the shaft of the iron does. The shaft bends with an iron, and it catapults the ball out there as a reaction to taking the divot. You hit the back of the ball first. Your weight's left on your left foot, about 80%, because you've uncocked the hands down to the ball. The ball is on the club face. It spins upwards a little bit, and the golf club cuts through the turf just to the left of the ball. That's divot 101.
This is Randy Glay from McKinney, Texas, and I play golf at El Dorado Country Club. This is Golf Smarter number 913.
Your irons are actually designed to be a digging tool with Ben Alexander.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Ben.
Hello, Fred. Great to be with you.
It's been a long time, and, in our pre-interview, you kind of reminded me that we sat face-to-face together back in 2006, back at Poppy Hills, and I was like, no, we did this on the phone. You're like, I said, we use Skype, and you said, I've never used Skype in my life. I don't know what it is.
I didn't know what it was, so but I remember the interview we did. Yeah.
Well, thank you for remembering. And I wish I could, but that was episode 27 of Golf Smarter. Again, we sat down in June of 2006, so it's been quite a while.
Now you've done 900 or so, something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you're going to be episode 914, my friend.
My gosh, time flies when you're having fun.
Well, are you having fun?
Yeah, I tell you, we love golf. I mean, it's a sport for a lifetime for all of us, and it's really good to hear your voice and to reconnect with you and all your listeners too.
Oh, thank you very much. So, you spent so many years at Poppy Hills, and like all of us, we age just a touch. But as long as we're here to talk about it, this is good stuff. And now you're up in the mountains in Northern California, and you're still teaching.
Yeah. I moved from Monterey. It got pretty expensive, toward the latter part of my career, and it's just amazing how the Bay Area where you guys live and where I lived, and up here I'm up at the near Mount Shasta, and I've been up here for just a few years. I'm teaching still just part time at the Lake Shastina Golf Resort, doing a few days a week and keeping my head in the game. And there's a lot of golfers up here. It's really fun because it's a golfing resort community, and but it's different being in the mountains because we have fires and we have 4 seasons up here compared to the overcast in Monterey.
4 seasons, and we're not talking about the singing group. You actually have 4 seasons of weather versus Monterey getting 2 seasons basically. So exactly. One of the things that, and this is what I love about this podcast, is there are things even from early days of my lessons with instructors on this show, I still repeat and say it regularly, because when I play golf, I'm always walking. And I walk at a brisk pace. And sometimes my friends are like, hey, man, don't you want to talk? And like, yeah, come on, let's go. And they're like, well, we can't keep up with you. Like, you know what? I learned early on, walk fast, swing slow.
You remember that?
Oh my, I repeat it to this day, and I always give you credit for it.
Gosh, I've heard that so much of my life, and I'll tell you where that came from. John Geertsen, who you might know, John was the head professional at Monterey Peninsula at the Country Club for 24 years, and he was a head pro at Poppy for 9 years. And John is my very dear friend, is still alive and is my mentor. And when we used to run the golf clinic, Pebble Beach Golf School, the original golf school in Pebble Beach at Poppy Hills, John, that was his mantra. And he always said, walk fast and swing slow and don't get it mixed up. and that was a slogan of our operation down there. And if you think about it, walk fast on the golf swing or walk fast on the golf course, and then kind of swing slow and don't get them mixed up.
Absolutely right. Let's dig into it, though. Let's talk about the value of swinging slow, because recently I have discovered that, especially on my takeaway, on the backswing, I have a tendency to go too fast. And when I'm able to consciously slow that down, hopefully unconsciously slow that down, I strike the ball much better.
Yeah, and that's so true, because if you watch the LPGA Tour players, I taught an LPGA Tour player. Her name is Danielle Makapani, and she won. I think she won 8 times in the LPGA, wow. And she's kind of semi-retired now. But when you watch LPGA Tour players, they hit the ball a long way, but their swing is so fluid, and it's much slower than the men on tour. Mm-hmm. And when we grew up as kids, they always said, take it back low and slow. And I disagree with that totally, because, if you took it back low and slow on the takeaway and your follow throughs fast, then you have 2 tempos in your golf swing. Mm. And what I teach is to have the same tempo back and the same tempo through. So many people that I taught and still do teach that they get really, really fast with their arms. And they have the lower body kind of gets stagnant and they don't turn quite as well. So they become an arm swinger. And what happens is it can throw the whole swing out of balance. It can not square the club face up. And what I do with the tempo of the golf swing is I have a person do a little verbal drill that I give them, where I have them say out loud a tempo drill. And it would be like 1/1000 on the backswing and 2/1000 on the follow through. So it'd be like 1/1000, 2/1000, 1/1000, 2/1000. And when I have them say it, Fred, what they do is they can hear the rhythm. They can hear the tempo. Mm-hmm.
Now, are you a advocate or a student of the 3-to-1 tempo? I know John Novosel of Tour Tempo did a lot of research, and it was backed up by Yale University, about the 3-to-1 rhythm tempo. And tempo and rhythm seem to have different explanations when you're talking about a golf swing. But I know if my follow through on my swing was the same tempo as the backswing, I'd probably hit the ball about 18 feet. So am I going too slow on my backswing here?
Well, and it's very possible, because what happens, everybody's golf tempo is different because we're built differently, and everybody's rhythm's going to be different. What I try and do is I try and get a rhythm to where people can feel fluid in their golf swing. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And to where they can start to feel the tempo. And be able to feel comfortable with their balance and to feel comfortable with their overall tempo of their golf swing.
Uh-huh. Okay. Now, you mentioned ago about being an arm swinger. Are we, I see people have a tendency that they rotate at the shoulders, not necessarily at the waist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And a lot of people get flat-footed on their golf swings. When you watch beginners a lot, what you'll see their right foot as they make their backswing is planted on the ground, but when they make their follow-through, if you look at their right foot, it's still flat-footed on the ground. And they're not finishing up on the right. They're not finishing up on the right toe and their right knee at the target. And so if you think about it this way, if you put a spike through both of your feet, and on the follow through, if there's a spike through your right foot and it's planted on the ground, you're making your follow through with your arms and shoulders and your upper body. And that's what we call it arm swing. And you see that, I'm sure you've seen it, where beginners do that a lot. And what it does, it wrenches your lower back, first of all, because you're trying to create rotation, on the follow through, and your right foot's planted and locked on the ground. So the body turn is the feet, knees, hips, and shoulders. The shoulders rotate to the right. And we used to teach, I still teach, the belt buckle turns to the right, or your tummy button, and your knees work. And then on the follow through, you reverse that to the left, where your right knee drives through, and you finish up in the right toe with your chest, tummy, and the right knee at the target. And big key here is that you want to stay on that spine tilt. When you get that address position, you get that spine tilt, and you want to maintain that where your shoulders turn and your hips, and that's called the turn. In PGA school, it's the feet, knees, hips, and shoulders. And so many people that I teach and see, and beginner golfers and veteran golfers that have been playing for 20 years, they swing flat-footed on the right foot. And next time you're out on the golf course, watch that. They'll swing flat-footed, the arms pull through to the left, and oftentimes they'll fall backwards, as they come through, and they have very poor balance.
Yep. I was guilty of that for a long, long time. It took me a while to figure out that one.
And it's hard on the back. You wonder, you want back problems. That'll give you back problems right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I frequently talk about how when I learned how to quiet my lower body, that a lot of my back pain subsided. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a great drill that you can do for that, when people are arm swingers, and so many people are, that you put a golf club you hold the golf club in your hands with your palms facing towards you, kind of hands crisscrossed, and you bring the golf club all the way up by the tip of your shoulders and with your arms flat down on your chest. So what you've done is you've taken the arms out of the scenario completely, because your arms are up on your chest, you're holding the golf club on your tip of your shoulders. And what you do is you tilt forward, get your address position like the shortstop with a baseball, and you make rotation to the right. And then you follow through to the left toward your target and see if you're finishing up on your right toe. And if you're not, then you realize that it's pretty much an arm swing, and that helps you develop a body rotation. The arms are really important in the swing. The term golf swing means the arms swing back and the arms swing through. That's the swing part of the golf swing. And the turn is the rotation back and rotation through. And when those two things get disconnected, that's what causes people with irons and the woods to really not square the club face up at the impact. That's a huge problem we see, and I've seen it in all my teaching career.
Listen, we're going to take a time out. We'll be back right after this. Ben, you just mentioned a minute ago about spine tilt. I want to dig into that a little bit more, and let's just focus on being a right-handed golfer. And I'm sorry to all the left-handed golfers, but you've been doing this most of your golfing career, trying to translate this from one side to the other. But for a right-handed golfer, when you talk about spine tilt, let's take that through step by step, starting at address and what you're describing.
Well, the spine tilt is actually hinging from the hip joints. Your hips have a ball socket in there, and they if you tilt forward, the ball socket in your hip is moving, and what you can do to kind of feel that, you take your stance, which is about shoulder width apart, and your left foot turned out, and stand nice and tall. Hold on to an iron and kind of put it in your waist, and don't bend the knees at all. Keep the legs locked to start. And what you do is you tilt forward, and your backside kind of pokes out, and your spine tilts forward, and then you bend the knees with a nice knee flex, very much like a shortstop does in baseball. But the topping the ball that so many people do, Fred, is that it's a big problem is they raise the spine up. And the spine tilt is the key. And when you tilt the spine forward from the hip joints, and you put the club in your waist, and you kind of just push it in, and you lock your legs, tilt forward, and your backside goes out, and your spine tilts forward, and then you bend the knees to a slight knee flex. And maintaining a spine tilt is staying down to the golf shot. And as you know, so many people, what do on a missed shot? Beginners and also veteran players, they top the golf ball. And if your spine raises up as you make the backswing and or the follow through, if your spine raises up, the golf club you're holding onto in your hands is going to raise up with you. And that's why so many people top the golf ball.
That's huge.
what do people say? Well, Charlie, you lifted your head, you took your eye off the ball, and it's not taking your eye off the ball. If your spine tilt raises up, that's a huge cause for topping the ball, and it has nothing to do with looking at the ball and taking your eye off the ball. I used to do exhibitions, and I did one up at Hagen Oaks years ago, where I would purposely top a golf ball for somebody. And I purposely topped the ball, and what I did was, as I came through the shot, I just raised up a little bit. I know where to raise up where I can top it. And I look at the audience, and I say, hey, folks, what does somebody in your group on Sunday say when you top a ball like that? And somebody in the group is going to say, this is so much fun. Somebody in the group is going to say, you looked up, you took your eye off the ball. So what I do is I bring that. Yeah. So I bring this guy down from the stands. I take my dress position like I'm going to hit my 7-iron, and I'm getting all ready. And I got this guy standing right in front of me. And what I do is I lift my head straight up and look him straight in the eye. Now, my spine isn't raised up. All I did was just looking at this guy. I hit a beautiful shot, take a divot, the ball flies up, and the guy's scratching his head. Well, that's what everybody says. They looked up, and I'm looking right at this guy. And I explained about the spine angle raising up, as that's what causes it. But if you think about it, 9 out of 10 new golfers and a lot of golfers that play on weekends say, gee, you looked up, took your eye off the ball, you lifted your head. It has nothing to do with it. It's a spine angle.
Interesting. Now, what about a spine tilt at address, tilting like away from the target? So again, towards your back foot, addressing the ball. Tell me your feelings, your teaching about that position.
Well, that happens naturally, Fred, when you take your adjust position and when you tilt your spine forward and you bend your knees and you get yourself in that ready position. When you grip the golf club for a right-handed golfer, when your right hand drops below the left, which is for a right-handed golfer, your right shoulder naturally tilts to the right because your right arm is going lower than your left arm. And that's why your shoulder, your right shoulder for a right-handed golfer, tilts a little bit to the right, and the spine tilts a little bit to the right because the right hand drops underneath. If you thought about, if you gripped your golf club on your grip and both of your hands were even, then your shoulders would be level. But because your right hand goes underneath your left, to grip the golf club, the right shoulder naturally tilts to the right. And that's what happens with that.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the spine tilts a little bit with it too.
Right. But then do you want on your follow through, shouldn't you have your weight shift be more to the front, to your forward foot? Even though you're a little bit tilted back because your hand is coming underneath there, but you don't want to finish your swing again. That could be like lifting, straightening out your spine, but you don't want to end your swing with your weight shift back on your right foot or your back foot, because that's going to have a tendency to try to scoop the ball, right?
Yep, you're exactly right. And when you hit an iron, or a driver, or a 3-wood or a hybrid, when you start off, your weight is 50-50, and 50-50 on both feet. The spine is tilted forward, the right shoulder tilts a little bit to the right, and it's very slight, but the right hand drops underneath the left on the grip. But when you're coming through to make impact with an iron, there is a weight shift to the left. And as you make your backswing, there's a little weight shift to the right. And as you make your follow through at impact, not on follow through, but at impact, you're going to have about 80% of your weight on your left foot and your left leg and your left side at impact. Then as you follow through up in your right toe with your right knee facing the target. And that's what you see on TV with the tour players. But the golf swing, my mentor always said the golf swing is rotation with a little bit of weight transfer. And what golfers do is when they're stuck on the right foot and the right foot's planted on the ground like we were talking earlier, and they try and hit a driver or a 3-wood or they try and hit an iron, their weight being planted on the right foot shifts to the right and it never shifts to the left. And that's oftentimes why they hit up and, as you said, scoop the ball, or oftentimes hit the ground first before they hit the ball. They're hitting the big ball before the little white ball.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they don't have a weight transfer.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then at that point, if they're flat-footed and there's no turning and weight transfer, that's where the arms get really fast, and that's what we call an arm swinger.
Mm-hmm. Okay, God, I love getting into the basics of a golf swing here, because we, sometimes we just forget about talking about that because we're like, oh, we're so sophisticated. But then let me ask you, now we're really breaking down a basic golf swing here. The left leg on your backswing, I've seen people have a tendency for that left knee or the forward knee to be pointing behind them, when I say behind them, I mean looking down the line of the ball. So the left knee will go in, or the forward knee will go in, and they'll go up on their toes on that backswing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, with the left foot.
Right. Where some teachers will say that you want to keep that knee not pointing back, but maybe pointing towards the ball down low, keeping the left foot down. And now there's talk of letting that forward heel come up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Great question. At your dress position, your knees are flexed and the spine's tilted forward like we talked earlier. To create rotation to the right, beginners oftentimes come all the way up on their left foot, up on the toe, like a ballerina dancer. And I'll stop them when I see that, and I'll say, hey, look at your left foot. And I'll say, well, what size feet do you have? Well, I got a size 10 shoe. Well, you just came up 10 inches on your left toe, which can cause your upper body to also raise up as your left foot's raising up in the air. If you're raising up, you're going to go up with your spine. And so what my belief is, and when I taught on the tour and when I teach any player, the left knee never pokes out toward the golf ball as you're trying to turn to the right, because it won't let you move that way. It won't let your hips turn. So what the function of the left knee is on the backswing, Fred, is that the left knee moves away from the target, which would be to your right, not out, but it moves to the right. It moves away from the target, and on the follow through, the left knee moves toward the target. It never moves out and pokes out away from you. And that happens oftentimes when golfers come all the way up on their left toe. Growing up and playing golf in many, many years ago as a young person, when I started playing at 12, that's what the tour players were doing. If you look at Nicklaus's swing back in the 50s and 60s, a lot of those players back then came all the way up on their left toe to try and make the backswing. But you don't see that on the tour in the last 25 years. What they do is they kind of roll on their left foot and keeps the balance and keeps them down to the golf ball. When you start popping the foot up, left foot, that can cause upper body to raise up as well. So what I teach is the left knee moves away from the target on the backswing. You kind of roll on your left foot, and you turn the shoulders and the belt buckle and the hips, and your knees kind of work in with the left knee moving away from the target. On the downswing, the right knee drives toward the left knee, and then you follow up on the right toe with your right foot. And there's a lot of parts I'm talking about there, but it's basically feet, knees, hips, and shoulders have a function. And when that club is up in your shoulders and you take the arms out of the scenario, oftentimes people don't really know what to do. And sometimes you have to develop the turn with the motor skill activity, which takes a lot of repetitive action.
We're going to take another time out. When we come back, we're going to move up the body to the chest and the arms. And we'll do that right after this. Okay, Ben. So now that we've got the lower body, we've got the position, we've got the weight shift, we've got the spine angle, I want to get your thoughts about something that we've talked about a lot here on the show. We had a teacher, Tony Manzoni, out of College of the Desert, Southern California area, who's no longer with us, and we miss him terribly. He was a great friend of Golf Smarter. And he used to talk about something that he witnessed or studied from Ben Hogan's videos and swings and writings. And then I recently saw Gary Player talking about the same thing, and that is about the left bicep staying attached to your left chest through the swing. I've been really trying to focus on that recently, and have been hitting the ball much better when I just know that I'm rotating my chest and keeping my left arm attached to my chest as I'm rotating my body and then following through.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that's a great point, because if you take your address position over the golf ball and your chest is basically pointing at the ball, when you make your rotation back, the chest turns away from the target as you're hinging your hands, and the left arm and the bicep is connected to the chest as it makes movement back. If the left arm starts moving out from your body and the arms are moving out and away, you're not hinging the golf club up. So I agree 100% with that. What I teach is on the backswing, your ball is your chest is facing at the golf ball. As you make your backswing, your chest turns to the right, faces away from the target. And on the follow through, your chest follows through toward the target and faces the target. But as that backswing happens, when your chest turns away from the target, your arms are moving backwards, and the bicep, should be attached to your body, kind of touching your chest body area, and as your hands are hinging. So if the left arm moves out away from your body, then that throws the whole swing out of plane. So I agree with that completely.
Wow. And then, but now let's step into a bunker here, and I'm trying to, like you kind of open your body on a bunker shot. We'll talk about greenside bunkers. You're opening your body a bit, right? And so it makes it harder, because if you keep your arm attached there, all of a sudden you're pulling the ball a lot off the line that you're trying to get to.
Yeah. And in a bunker, when I do bunker lessons, I'll have a person set up to the ball square, to start with, with the sand wedge, actually touching the sand, so they can kind of get a feel of where the club is at. And I'll set it up square with the target line and the feet. And then what I'll do is I'll draw a line with the back of my golf club next to the golf ball, have an arrow pointing at the target, so I draw a line next to the golf ball on the outside of the ball with an arrow facing the target. And then what I'll do is I'll draw a line with the stance open in the sand. So the stance is open about 30 degrees. So both the toes are kind of open. And I teach to play the ball in the center of the stance. So I use a lot of visual when I'm doing a bunker lesson. So I've got a line next to the ball, arrow in the sand, pointing at the target. And I'll say, this is where we're trying to go. I have the stance open very, very slightly. And what I do is now next, I draw a line in the sand directly behind the golf ball, about 2 or 3 feet. And it's about 2 inches behind the ball. So they've got a little target line. They can see where the stance is open a little bit. And then the line is directly behind the ball. And the line directly behind the ball is where you're trying to make impact in the sand. You're not trying to hit the ball. It's the only shot in golf where you never make contact with the ball itself. You hit the sand. And so that's what I do is I'll draw lines in the sand visually so a student can see that. And then I'll rake the sand up, so I have them set up to it without the lines. And then I always draw a line behind the ball so they can see the impact point. But yeah, the stance is open to the left a little bit. You want to keep your weight on the left foot, left leg, left foot, about 80% at the address position and also at impact. There's not a lot of weight transfer in the bunker, because when you start transferring the weight to the right, that oftentimes moves people off the ball. And what we see is they'll hit the sand, Fred, with the sand wedge 4, 5, 10 inches behind the ball in the sand. And that's we don't want a big weight transfer in the bunker. It's a pretty simple shot. But when I'm teaching, I'll draw that line next to the ball, a little arrow, draw a line behind the ball, and then have the stance open about 30 degrees so they can kind of see where their setup is. And but you still want that driving the right knee through. It's not a dead leg shot. It's not an arm shot. It's cocking the hands, and it's a little bit of a hitting down on the ball and a little bit of a finish facing the target. It's a basic golf swing.
Yeah, you know, so many of us are working on like, I'm trying to get my swing right. I'm trying to get my swing right. And then you start pulling out different clubs in your bag and realize that it's not the same swing for every club. It's like there's so much that you have to think about. Like, oh, okay, now with this club in this position, I have to do these things where I'm teeing off. There's so many different kind of shots that you have to be comfortable making, let alone understand how to and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, very, very true. And golf is broken down where you have the full swing with your woods and irons, and then you have the short game, which is, putting, chipping, pitching, and bunkers. And that's the great thing about the sport. There's a lot of areas of golf, and that's where you need an accomplished PGA professional to help guide you through the journey, where you kind of take it in segments. Where when I do lessons, I do the first few lessons on the range with the irons, and then the get into the woods. And then after we're comfortable with that, that's a basic golf swing. It's the same swing with the irons and the woods. You're not taking a divot with your driver, of course. But then the short game is 2/3 of the strokes on a tour player scorecard. Mm-hmm. And the short game, when I teach short game at my area up here, I teach that the short game is about 30 yards away from the green. That's where it kind of starts. And if you're 30 feet off the green, or 10 feet, or 30 yards, or 20 yards, it's certainly not a full swing. And there are different swings and things in golf. And when you and I get out on the golf course, like when I talked to you the other day, I know we're playing golf, and you get a lot of things thrown at you. And the cool thing about golf is that you only hit your driver 14 times.
Maybe.
And you got 4 par. Yeah, you got 4. Well, yeah, you got 4 par threes, and you hitting the driver 14 times, and then but everybody's working on their driver like 90% of the time sometimes, But a driver's not a scoring club. You're just trying to get into position. So you got one swing for the woods and irons. It's a basic swing. You take a divot with your irons, and it's more of a sweeping motion with your driver. And then if you don't hit a lot of greens in regulation, which a lot of players don't, then it's you're in the short game area. And you certainly have different swings with that. I mean, a bunker shot is a little different action. A chip shot's a different shot. A putt's a different shot. I have a little formula, if I can throw it out at you, about the short game, that when you're within 30 yards from the green, and I always kind of remember the football days when I was younger, 30 yards, 20 yards, 10 yards on the hash marks. If your ball is in that area of 10 yards, 20 yards, my formula is putt it first, chip it second, and pitch it last. And your putt is always going to be better than, because you're keeping the ball on the ground. And so many people, even when they're in the fringe, they're chipping the ball when the ball's in the fringe. So I always say, well, putt it is your first choice. If there's no way you can putt it 10, 20, 30 yards off the green, then it's going to be a chip shot. And that's where you're playing the ball back and playing the ball back in your stance a little bit, hands ahead, and you're getting the ball on the green or rolling it up to the hole. That's a chip shot. If there's no way you can putt it or chip it, then it's a pitch with your sand wedge or your lob wedge. And it's not a big swing. It's an adjusted swing. My teacher used to call it a mini golf swing. And if you have to go over a bunker, if you have to chip it over or pitch it over the rough, so putt it is first choice. If you can't putt it, then chip it. And if you can't chip it and get it on the ground and roll it up to the hole, then the only option you have is a little pitch shot, and that would be with a lob wedge or a sand wedge. Putt, chip, or pitch.
Right. And what I see so many people doing, and based on so many different conversations I've learned, I think, that the goal, getting the ball onto the green, is to get it on the green as soon as possible and let it roll out. And so often I'll see people go putt first, pitch second, right? Where they're just trying to get the ball to land near the hole, and they don't take into account that it's going to release. You're not going to get backspin on it, folks. I mean, we just don't do that. And so you don't need to try to get the ball way up in the air. Okay, understand if there's a bunker in the way, if there's, something that would prevent you from hitting the ball low and letting it roll out. But isn't the idea of, and that's why chipping would be second, is you want to get the ball to the ground as quickly as you can so you can let it roll and then work those distances, correct?
Yeah, well said. Well said, because when you're putting the ball has about 95% forward roll as it comes off the putter. It's rolling to the hole, and you're judging and guesstimating how much backswing on a putt or the speed of your putter that you're getting the ball to roll to the hole. And then if you're going to chip the ball, what I teach is I teach, just to use a couple of clubs for chipping. Use a 7-iron, play the ball off your back foot, narrow the stance, move your hands ahead, and do a pendulum stroke, keeping that golf club aimed at the target during the entire motion of the pendulum stroke. Because when you chip a ball with a 7-iron, the ball's coming off the club face with about 95% forward roll. It doesn't have backspin. It's got forward roll on it. And you're guesstimating how big or small your stroke is. I teach chipping with the 7-iron if you have longer distances to roll a ball to the hole, if you got a lot of green to work with. If you've got a tight flag stick and you're near the flag stick, I teach the chip shot with a sand wedge, because the ball comes off with still forward 95% forward roll, but you have slower velocity on it. And sand wedge is very effective if you have a short flag. 7-iron is really effective if you got a longer flag and a lot of green to work with. And of course, if you do have to do a pitch shot, if you can't do either of those shots, if you got a lot of rough to get it over, if you got a sand trap to carry it over, then you do a mini golf swing, just a normal setup, ball in the center, cocking the hands and uncocking the hands, hitting down on the ball. But it's not a big swing, but it's maybe a little quarter swing or a half swing. But so many people mess up their golf games because they have lousy short games. And they really don't practice it very, very much because they kind of dabble with it. Well, they say, I'm a pretty good short game player. When I do a playing lesson like I did with a student a few days ago, Fred, when we're out on the golf course, like I did a few days ago with my client, we put a ball over in the area of the green or off the green in the rough. And I said, well, what are your options? Would you chip it from here or putt it from here? You make them make the decision. And if they go with the formula, putt it, chip it, and pitch it, it always leads them to the correct formula of what they should do around the green within about 20, 30 yards away from the green.
Wow, such good stuff. So we have a show called Golf Smarter Mulligans where we go back and listen to some of the best of the Golf Smarter episodes that are no longer available. And I bring that up because episode number 6 of Golf Smarter Mulligans is our very first conversation, our only other conversation that was originally recorded in 2006. So if people are finding what Ben have to say fascinating, it's still available. You can go back to Golf Smarter Mulligans, episode number 6, and hear that one. But let's hear what's going on this week with Golf Smarter Mulligans. This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans, we're graced by one of my favorite guests, Jeff Ritter, in part 1 of a 2-part interview. Jeff has been dubbed as one of Golf Digest's best young teachers in America. And just before we recorded this, he was named the National Director of Instruction at the Nike Golf Schools and Junior Camps. This episode is called You're Either Learning or You're Performing. And here's what he means.
You're either learning or you're performing. At least you should be. So, for example, when you're on the range, you need to take off your performance cap. You need to get entirely into learning mode, which means trying to change the way that you move in an environment that is void of worrying about what the outcome is going to be. When you go to the golf course, you may have made those changes on the range, but you're so eager to shift back into performance mode that all that stuff sometimes just falls right apart. Getting from the range to the course is a big mental hurdle for some people. And a lot of times you have to really change in your mind what it means for you to have fun.
That's episode 229, part 1 of our conversation featuring Jeff Ritter on our sister podcast, Golf Smarter Mulligans, being released this Friday morning. Originally published in February of 2012. So if you're a fan of Golf Smarter's content, don't miss the chance to get 2 episodes every week. That's Golf Smarter, golf's longest-running podcast, and Golf Smarter Mulligans, episodes from our archives that revisit the best of the Golf Smarter podcast. They're both available for free from wherever you're listening right now. Ben, your advice is spectacular. Thank you so much. I do want to bring up something you said a few minutes ago about the hitting the divot with the irons, getting more of a sweeping motion with the woods. But do you still want to have, even though you're not trying to pull a divot out with your woods or your hybrids, do you still want to have the bottom of your swing in front of the ball? Or when you're sweeping through it, are you kind of just coming up behind the ball?
Well, with the driver, of course, the ball with the driver is played forward in your stance off your left heel. And the shaft is straight up and down. It doesn't lean to the left or the right. The shaft is straight up and down, the ball's forward. So when you're making your swing with your driver, there still is a weight transfer. You want to get your weight on your left foot about 60 or 80% at impact so you can make the follow through. With the 3-wood, you still have the ball position off your left heel. You still want to take a little bit of turf with your 3-wood because the ball's sitting on the ground. You're not trying to sweep it off the ground. You're trying to take a little turf with that. And of course, with the irons, I teach to play the irons 5-iron all the way down through the lob wedge in the center of the stance. Because the arc of the swing with the 5-iron, 6-7, all the way down to your wedges, the bottom of the arc bottoms out in the center of the stance. The early days in Nicklaus's book, Nicklaus's book, Golf My Way, he always said, play all your irons almost off your left heel. You remember those days in his book, Golf My Way? And the golf club did not bottom out off the left heel with a pitching wedge. It bottoms out in the center of the stance. So I teach 3 ball positions off the left heel, or, off the left heel with the woods. If you have a hybrid club, like a 3 or 4 hybrid or a 3 or 4 iron, which is what they are, you play the ball a little forward, but the iron's 5 through the sand wedge, which is what we mostly hit. We play it in the center. And so you're trying to hit down with the irons, you're trying to hit down with the hybrid, but with the driver and the 3-wood, it's more of a, I don't want to confuse people, but you're actually hitting up on the ball a little bit because the ball's played so far forward off your left heel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to top it. Keep your spine set.
Yeah. You don't want to look up. Keep your head down.
Exactly. So I've just come to this realization lately because I've struggled for such a long time with my 5-iron and 6-iron and even sometimes 7-iron, but mostly my 5-iron is that I would get a big slice on it and really struggle with getting it on the line that I'm aiming. And just recently, I moved the ball a little more forward in my stance, and all of a sudden, I'm making better contact and hitting it straight again, which is my goal. So I'm realizing that I had the ball too far back in my stance on a number of my clubs.
Right, yeah. And the 5-iron down through your sand wedge, if you play the ball generally in the center of the stance, you're trying to square the club up about 8 or 9 inches on either side of the golf ball. And if you're slicing the ball or pushing it with your iron or your 5-iron, that means as you're coming into that area about 8 or 9 inches on the ball, say figure 10 inches on either side of the golf ball, if the golf club is open through that area, driver or a 5-iron, it's going to go off to the right. And if the golf club is closed through that 10 inches on either side of the ball, it's going to go to the left. And a great drill to work on, these training sticks that we all have, you've seen them, you probably have them in your bag, and they've got those training sticks that you buy at the golf shop and you keep them in your bag, and you see tour pros use them all the time. I have a bunch of them I use in a lesson tee. Here's a great drill, is to get either 2 of your irons or 2 of those training sticks, and just put them on the ground about 6 inches apart from each other. And then take your stance and put your golf club in between those 2 training sticks without a golf ball. And take your stance. You got your imaginary golf ball there. You got your 5-iron on the grass, and you're getting ready to do this. Make a backswing, and a full follow through at normal speed, and see if your golf club clips one of those training sticks. And I can almost guarantee you for a lot of the listeners, it'll clip the inside stick, which means the golf club is pulling to the left as you're coming through. and it's not square going down the line. It's a wonderful drill to take the ball out of play.
Wait a minute. Now the sticks aren't pointing down the line of the ball. They're coming between your legs, right? And you're going.
No. The sticks are on the grass, pointing at the target.
They are
down
pointing
the
at the
driving
target.
range.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so they're pointing at the target about 6 inches apart. You take your address position, and you put your golf club, just grip it and put your golf club touching the grass, and the sticks are pointing toward your target down the driving range, and you're making a swing to where the golf club head is going in between those sticks as you're making your swing.
I get it. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
And a lot of tour pros, if you notice, if you're watching them warming up on the driving range, of course, we had the AT&T at Poppy Hills, so many years at Poppy, and gave us a chance to see the players up close. Every player to a man on the PGA Tour has those sticks in their bag, and I use them for teaching. Most teaching pros use them with our equipment. And if you hit the stick, the outside stick, the inside stick, that means your swing path is off, and that's going to make a definite difference on where the ball is going to go, right or left. You can take your 3-wood, do the same thing like you did with your 5-iron, Fred. Put your 3-wood in between those two sticks with the sticks pointing down at the target. Take your stance and make your swing with your 3-wood to see if you're clipping those sticks. And if you're clipping those sticks, your golf club head is not repeating every time going down the line. You should never hit the sticks. You should just brush the grass as you make your full backswing and your full follow through. And when you're coming to the impact, you should never clip the sticks with any club in your bag.
Great advice.
And then here's the other side of that drill.
Please.
Then you put a golf ball in between. You put a golf ball in between those two sticks.
Oh no, that'll screw up everything.
and start off with a pitching wedge with the golf ball, shorter distance. But that's how you practice it. You do some practice swings in between the sticks with no ball. Then you put a golf ball in between the two sticks about 6 inches apart, and you actually hit shots. And if you're clipping the stick, then oftentimes a golfer is coming over the top, swinging outside to in, or there's a lot of things that are going awry. They're not repeating their swing. And this little 2-stick drill really helps you start developing the consistency of a solid impact.
Probably one of the least expensive training aids you can find these days, those 2 little sticks.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful.
And you can get them online or at the golf stores. Sure. Up here, I'll have people go to the local hardware store to get a couple of the little, the sticks that you might put in the front of your driveway for markers, and just throw them in your bag, and they're wonderful training tools.
Fabulous. Well, you were a 2004 PGA Teacher of the Year, Northern California section. You were also nominated for a PGA Teacher of the Year. Congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment. And so you've given thousands, probably tens of thousands of lessons, seen tens of thousands of golf students. What are some of the issues that you've seen that just are so common, but people just aren't aware of?
I think the biggest thing is not taking a divot, and I played Callaway clubs for years. I played Titleist, which I still have in my bag, and irons are designed as a digging tool. And when you take a divot, when you hit the back of the golf ball, the golf club head actually cuts through the turf a little bit on the left side of the ball, and the ball kind of spins up the club face. It all happens simultaneously together. And as the golf club is cutting through the turf to the left side of the ball, it slows the club head down a little bit. It slows the club head, and then it says, shaft, your turn, and the shaft bends and acts like a catapult to catapult the ball out there to give the iron shot a normal distance. If you pick the ball cleanly off the grass, or if you pick the ball cleanly off the tee on a par 3 hole, then you've lost 25 to 30 yards on your iron shot because the golf shaft was not allowed to bend as a reaction to taking the divot. And that's how the irons are designed. And there's been no student I've taught, Fred, over the years that ever wants to hit the ball shorter. They all want to hit it farther. And not taking a divot The things I hear from students, well, I don't want to hurt my hands because I'm hitting the ground. Well, I don't want you hitting the ground. I want you hitting the back of the ball. But that's where the weight transfer to the left comes in, that we talked about earlier in the show. But not taking a divot is probably the key fault with a lot of golfers. And they say to me they don't want to hit the ground first 6 inches behind the ball. Well, I don't want you hitting the ground first either. And that's where we work with them and train them to hit the back of the ball. And I do a little demonstration, like imagine if you're out there fishing with a fly rod, the fishing pole is going to have a lot of whip to it. It's like a catapult. It's not a firm, stiff fishing pole. It actually has to bend, and it kind of flips the line out there. Well, that's what the shaft of the iron does. The shaft bends with an iron and your hybrids all the way down to your wedges. The shaft has to bend, and it catapults the ball out there as a reaction to taking a divot. You hit the back of the ball first. Your weight's left on your left foot, about 80%, because you've uncocked the hands down to the ball. The ball is on the club face. It spins upwards a little bit, and the golf club cuts through the turf just to the left of the ball. That's divot 101. Well, you don't take a divot with your driver. It's more of a sweeping motion because the shaft of the driver is so long, it acts like that fishing pole catapulting action on its own. But the irons, hybrid down to your wedges, you've got to make that reaction occur of taking a divot. And can I share a little quick drill with you on that?
Oh, I'd love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I call it my impact drill. I learned it from the great teacher, Jim Flick. The NorCal PGA, we have a teacher forum every year for 2 days, usually in Sacramento area. And Jim Flick gave us this exercise, and it's called the impact drill. Take your address position with your pitching wedge, and get the ball, out in front of you and get yourself all ready to hit it, and make a little quarter golf swing, just a little quarter golf swing, hit the ball and stop the club just past the ball about 1 foot. So you're taking a little short backswing, cocking your hands up to like a little quarter swing, drive the right knee into the left, hit the back of the ball, and stop the golf club just past the ball to see if you're hitting down on the ball. And it's a mini swing, and it's called the impact drill. Oftentimes when I give this drill to people, instead of stopping 1 foot past the ball, they finish all the way up on with the club over the left shoulder. Well, club over the left shoulder is not the impact, that's the follow through. So the impact drill actually is a quarter golf swing, and it'll help you to start hitting down on the ball with a weight transfer to the left. Again, it's just cocking the hands to a little quarter swing with the pitching wedge, uncock the hands, hit the ball with your weight to the left, stop the golf club just past the ball about a foot, and that's what it does to actually help you start to feel what the impact should feel like. Then you build the swing up, with your other irons and all that. But if you're starting to top the ball or thin the shot or having ball flight problems, there's no divot. I always suggest to my students on the golf course, do a little impact drill before you hit the shot. Make sure you take a divot, because this drill is designed to actually take a divot. And it's a wonderful drill. It's called the impact drill.
That is so good. That is so good. Well, for years I've talked about walk fast, swing slow. I've got a new one. I'm going to be quoting you for years. Irons are designed to be a digging tool.
There you go.
Oh, Ben, it's so great to reconnect with you and hear you and get a lesson from you. Your content is so valuable. I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you again, Fred, and you take care, my good friend.
So there's a couple things I'd like to share. I'm sure I've repeated this way too often, but I've been a fan of audio content since I fell in love with Boss 40 AM radio in the 1960s. Then the rise of freeform FM radio in the 70s. Now, in my teens, I started creating audio content and have done so on many levels my entire life, from silly outgoing phone messages, AM and FM radio, corporate audio newsletters, national syndications, audiobooks, all the way through to podcasts. Well, then as technology started changing the game, I also got into creating video content, which I kind of studied in college as well. I've always been a one-man shop, rarely delegating tasks, but constantly learning how to improve my many skill sets, which is also my passion, kind of like my golf game. Well, this is to say that I still have a lot to learn about my trades, which is why a few months ago, I enlisted the help of an agency to do my video social media posts for Golf Smarter. Even though their approach to content creation is radically different than I would do, I let them run wild, finding and posting excerpts of each Golf Smarter episode and creating short videos and articles. And to my delight, it's working, and working well. There are posts 6 times each week from these interviews that have had tens of thousands of views. So I invite you to please get the most out of each podcast episode by following @GolfSmarter on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you're comfortable checking LinkedIn regularly, then follow me, Fred Green from Novato, California, as well for regular tips, insights, advice, and controversy from the weekly Golf Smarter podcast. Now, as I go through our archives to prepare episodes for Golf Smarter Mulligans, I was surprised to see an episode with Tony Manzoni that I've never included in our annual Tony Manzoni Spring Golf Season Kickoff. Now, I can't decide if I want to play it as it comes up in order or wait until next March and April when we usually do 9 consecutive episodes and adding 1, or maybe I find more. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear what you have to say. I do want to welcome this week's Golf Smarter ambassador, Randy Glay from McKinney, Texas, where I've actually been and had a great time working at a fan festival in 2005 to kick off the McKinney NBA G League season. Randy, it was for the Houston Rockets. Randy chose Tony Manzoni's video, The Lost Fundamental, as his gift for participating. And I invite you to join our global team of Golf Smarter ambassadors by calling our toll-free Golf Smarter listener line so that you too can be on the podcast and receive a free gift of your choice. Gifts include Tony Manzoni's video of The Lost Fundamental, or a box of Odin X1 balls with the Golf Smarter logo, or a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes and on today's blog post, so please write to me, and I'll get back to you with some instructions of what to do and what to say. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for upcoming episodes, DM me on social media or write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com. And then there's always, click on that Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.